Leonis was an ugly Dark Lord who ruled the world, but because of his greed, he was defeated by humans and goddesses. After thousands of years, he was reincarnated as an ugly, innocent boy, and he had to disguise himself as a weak boy to restore his kingdom. The story begins in an era when gods, spirits, and magic rule the earth. In the Necrozoa, City of Death, the battle between the Demon King's army and the 6 heroes reaches its peak. Humanity managed to defeat the skeleton army thanks to the help of the goddess. Because when humanity's army fell, the goddess quickly revived them. They became like immortals. In the castle, it seems that the last Demon King gets a report on the fall of the other Demon Kings. And now only himself remains. He is named Leonis Death. In the midst of a rain of attacks, Leonis was annoyed because the great sage Arakael now sided with the goddesses. Leonis was angry and wanted to burn them with the fire of darkness, but he was stopped by his henchmen. Because Leonis is the last Demon King. If he loses, then the rebel goddess named Rosalia will be angry. Because he had promised her. Leonis admitted his defeat this time, but he will rise and reclaim his throne. After thousands of years, we see 2 girls entering a cave. They are from Unit 18 who are investigating the Void Trail there. Their names are Celia and Regina. There they find some statues. They wonder if a king is buried there. They go to a locked door. There is an inscription that they don't understand. Meanwhile, Regina went to investigate on the other side. When Celia touched the door, it suddenly opened. While in there, her device shut down due to overreaction. There was a stone, like a large diamond. Celia thought that if there was someone inside, she intended to help. Meanwhile, ugly Leonis meets with Rosalia to fulfill his promise to find a vessel to inherit the goddess's power. Celia tries to shoot at the stone until suddenly, the stone glows and explodes. The explosion knocked Celia unconscious. When she woke up, Celia was surprised to see a boy in front of her, but strangely, the boy was also surprised to see himself. He muttered, "Did his reincarnation fail so that his form became when he was the hero?" Celia asked why he was trapped there. The little boy was confused. Suddenly, Celia hugged him and said he was now safe, and the boy enjoyed the watermelon so much that he fainted. Celia gave him food. They introduced themselves to each other. Celia introduced herself as Rosalia Ray Crystalia. She is a student of the Excalibur Academy, and she is 15 years old. The boy muttered that she thought of him as an ordinary child, but he was a Demon King. He introduced his name as Leonis Magnus. He thought his name had already become a famous and terrifying legend. But Celia didn't know, and instead said that it was a cute name. Celia thinks he's here because he was kidnapped by the Void, but Leonis doesn't know what the Void is. Celia explains that the Void has been an enemy of humanity for 64 years. According to rumors, the creature was from Isekai, and she was there to investigate the voids that often appeared in ancient ruins. Leonis was confused, and he asked what year it was in the holy calendar. Celia tried to fight it with a gun, but it didn't hurt the Void at all. Leo wanted to help, but he slipped on his own clothes. Poor Leo. Suddenly, Regina shot the Void with her weapon, but the monster was still alive. Regina turned Excalibur into Dragon Blast. Leo said that the weapon's power was equivalent to 4th level explosion magic. After defeating the Void, they left there. Leo wanted to eradicate the Void monsters that were there, but he didn't want to leave Celia, who was his current source of information. He decided to keep his identity as a Demon King a secret.
While running, a Void suddenly fell from the roof. The Void monster was a wyvern. Celia took out her sword. An annoyed Leo wanted to attack the monster, but Celia told him to leave. And instantly, Celia was hit by the monster's attack. At the time of her last words, Celia apologized for not being able to protect Leo and told him to go meet Regina. But Leo instead said that Celia was stupid for protecting him. Leonis remembered his past when he was still a human until he followed the rebel goddess. Leo, who was annoyed, immediately finished off all the voids there using 8th level magic power. He burned the voids there, but the bones of the monsters still remained. Leo muttered, if he now only had 1/3 the power as a Demon King. Leo, who felt that Celia had sacrificed her life for him, finally chose to resurrect Celia with his magic power. While in the process of resurrection, a mark appeared on Celia's leg. Leo muttered, "When Celia finds out the facts, will she be angry?" On the other hand, Regina was fighting void monsters. She contacted Celia. Leo heard Regina's voice from Celia's earphones, but Leo thought it was a long-distance magic communication device. He thinks that human magic is very advanced. Not long after, Celia woke up and she was greeted by Leonis. But Celia was more worried about Leonis than herself. Celia was surprised because the wound on her body had healed without any marks at all. Leonis said that he healed it using magic. Celia, who didn't know what magic was, made Leonis surprised to hear it. Celia thought that Leonis was using Excalibur. Not wanting his identity to be revealed, Leonis confirmed Celia, who thought that Leonis was using Excalibur. Since he didn't know what Excalibur was, he asked Celia. Celia explained that Excalibur is the hidden power of humans to fight voids, and most of that power is in the form of weapons. For example, Regina's Excalibur is Dragon Howl. Each Excalibur adapts to the nature of its user. But until now, Celia did not have an Excalibur. Then Regina finally managed to find the two of them. When Regina asked about the wound on Celia's body, but immediately Celia remembered, where did all the voids disappear? After that, they got out of there. Celia told Regina that Leo was the child who was kidnapped by the voids, and he was experiencing memory loss. Then Celia invited Leonis to go with her. Along the way, Regina introduced herself. She is Miss Celia's servant. But she noticed Leonis, who was nasty. They sped up and Leonis held on tightly to the Celia, and of course with a face that very Seuss. Regina teased Leonis, who was with Celia. She even wants to show a surprise so that Leonis remembers something. Wow. What is it, guys? But unfortunately, Leo refused, even though in his mind he definitely wanted to. Celia scolded Regina, who continued to tease Leonis. After that, they arrived at humanity's last stronghold against the voids, the castle of Excalibur users and swords. The place was called the 7th Assault Garden. Leonis was amazed to see the world after 1,000 years had passed. The story shifts to Celia's childhood when countless void creatures attacked humanity. Celia and Regina were in a refugee bunker at the time. Seeing Regina scared, Celia tried to calm her down. Celia's father led the fight of the humans against the voids. Not only that, Celia's mother and the knights had never lost against the voids. Celia also stated that if she obtained Excalibur, she would join her father in fighting the voids. In the end, they laughed together. However, something happened that caused the lights in the bunker to turn off, which prompted Celia to intend to leave and join her family in the fight. Of course, Regina tried to stop her. With tears in her eyes, Celia reiterated that her father, mother, and the other troops had never lost and would be fine. Shortly after that, the refugee bunker opened, indicating that the void attack had ended. Knowing that thousands of Excalibur users had fallen, it naturally saddened Celia because she had lied about the Excalibur troops, her father and mother never losing. The story returns to the present, where Leonis, Celia, and Regina are almost at the 7th Assault Garden city. After arriving there, Leonis couldn't believe that humans could create an island of this size. However, Regina corrected him, saying that this place was not an island, but a large floating city. Leonis was astonished that such a place could move. Celia reported data from a previous investigation and mentioned that she would take Leonis to the dormitory. Regina was surprised to learn that Leonis already had Excalibur. Celia informed her that Leonis had healed her wounds, and perhaps Leonis's kindness had awakened his Excalibur. They referred to Leonis as a foreign child, someone who had fled their country due to the void attack. Assault Garden also had a mission to find and help such individuals. Celia explained that Leonis would stay at the Excalibur Academy, which was a place for training Excalibur users. She would take care of the necessary procedures, and Leonis was instructed to enter through the scanner while she waited for him at the exit. Leonis went to the toilet and found himself upset because his plan had been to raise the Demon King's army and eliminate humanity. Instead, he found human civilization to be advanced, and his body had become that of a boy. Leonis then called his two servants, named Blackass and Sherry. Sherry and Blackass were surprised to see Leonis in his boy form, as they had known him as the Demon King. Leonis explained that his reincarnation had failed, and he had returned to his human form. Blackass had only known Leonis in his demon form, having met him after his transformation into the Demon King. Sherry commented on how cute Leonis looked. Meanwhile, Leonis had a request for both Blackass and Sherry. Leonis tells them that they are currently on an artificial island, and this city is Fortress Move number 7. That means there are still 6 other fortress cities. Upon hearing this, Sherry becomes curious about whether humanity has managed to surpass the half-demon race and the elf civilization. This is why they need to investigate humanity's strength in preparation for raising the Demon King's army. Leonis asks them to investigate this city, but they are forbidden to use magic because magic is rare at this time. Meanwhile, Leonis will sneak in and gather information at the Mankind Warrior Training School. Sherry is disappointed that she won't be able to take care of her cute master. Then, they set off to carry out their master's orders. Afterward, Leonis enters the scanner door, knowing that this place is a checkpoint. After going through the scanning process, Leonis proceeds to the next stage. Suddenly, an alarm sounds, and Leonis realizes that his magic energy triggered it. He quickly conceals his magic energy, and once the situation returns to normal, Leonis resolves to be more cautious in the future. Upon successfully passing the checkpoint, Leonis receives his ID card. However, Celia takes it from him, explaining that it's necessary for Excalibur's examination preparation before entering the academy, where they need to record the characteristics of Excalibur. After the process is complete, Leonis will receive an official ID. Upon hearing this, Leonis tries to devise a plan to maintain his true identity secret. Following that, Celia takes Leonis on a tour of the academy before returning to the dormitory. Leonis is surprised to see that the residents remain peaceful despite being on the front lines. Celia explains that even though Excalibur users are sent to the front lines, the 7th Assault Garden has never been breached by the Voids. They are now almost at the Excalibur Academy, which serves as the command and military center. Leonis noticed that the place is much larger than the Demon King's fortress, the Death Hold. Celia then shows Leonis the learning rooms, auditorium, library, and laboratories. But Celia said that she had only shown half of Excalibur Academy's facilities. Celia showed the Excalibur examination room. But she suddenly fell down and felt dizzy. However, she had to train immediately so that she could get her hands on Excalibur. Leonis was surprised that Celia, who didn't have the power of Excalibur, could enter the academy. 2 girls were attracted to Leonis, who was super cute. They said, "Although cute, that boy could be a future Demon King." Hearing that, of course, Leonis was surprised, but he thought it was impossible for them to know his identity. Shortly after that, a man with some girls arrived. The man's name was Muzel Rhodes. Muzel mocked Celia, making her upset. Leonis found out that Muzel was not Celia's best friend. Celia then invited Leonis to leave, but she was stopped by Muzel. Muzel laughed because Celia not only formed an exile platoon, but also took care of a kid. Hearing that Leonis was able to use Excalibur, of course Muzel couldn't believe it. Although Muzel had mocked them, Leonis forgave him so as not to attract attention. Muzel invited Celia to join his platoon, and Celia did not have to fear being kicked out of the academy if she joined a high-level platoon. From this, Leonis learned that Celia had inherited her family's Excalibur, but she was unable to show it. Apparently, Muzel invited Celia to become Muzel's toy collection, just like the girls behind him. Celia refused, which made Muzel even more annoyed and pulled Celia's hair. Leonis, who lost his temper, then called Muzel and gave him a magic look. Suddenly, this NPC guy knelt down to Leonis. Leonis threatened Muzel if he dared to touch Celia's beautiful hair. Feeling scared, Muzel activated the power of Excalibur. Suddenly, a girl stopped Musil because students were prohibited from using Excalibur without permission. The girl's name was Fine. Fine threatened that if Musil didn't leave, the recording would be sent to the supervisor. Irritated, Musil left with his toys. Fine realized that Leonis was the kid found in the ruins. They got acquainted. Her long name was Elphine File, who was an analyst in Celia's platoon. Fine will prepare a uniform for Leonis as she has already measured his body. Leonis was amazed to see Fine's Excalibur. Fine then informed Celia that she could not accompany her on today's mission, as she was analyzing the data from the supervisor about the unnatural magical energy in the ocean. Although she had analyzed it, Fine still didn't understand. Suddenly, Celia felt dizzy, but Celia said that she just felt tired. Leonis muttered, "Is Celia getting thirsty already?" Long story short, they arrived at Celia's dormitory called Frakaverg. The determination of the dormitory was based on the platoon's work. A platoon was a team of Excalibur users. Only high-ranking platoons were allowed to move to the new dormitory. Regina was seen sleeping after shopping. It was because Excalibur's power consumed a lot of energy. When he entered Celia's room, Leonis asked if it was okay if he entered the girls' dormitory. But Celia didn't mind because Leonis was still a kid. Celia told Leonis to take a shower first. Then, Celia asked if Leonis wanted to join her platoon after his Excalibur inspection was completed. But she canceled her question because Leonis was currently taking a shower. While using the soap to clean his hair, Celia suddenly entered the bathroom. Of course, Leonis was surprised. She then said that hair is cleaned using shampoo, not soap. Then, Celia washed Leonis' hair. Oh my gosh, this boy is so lucky. Celia said that Leonis was free to enter any platoon because the healing power of Excalibur was precious. High-ranked platoons were definitely eyeing Leonis. Compared to Celia's platoon, it wouldn't be advantageous for Leonis because Celia's Excalibur hadn't appeared yet. But if he was willing, Celia asked Leonis to be her partner. Leonis felt that Celia was upholding justice because she had told him of her weakness. Leonis wondered that Celia was still fighting even without the power of Excalibur. It was better for her to ask for protection. But Celia wanted to fight directly. Suddenly, Celia fell down and said that her body was weak. Then Leonis touched Celia and a mark appeared, and Celia's eyes turned red. Her teeth also had fangs. Celia then sucked Leonis' blood like a vampire. Then she came to her senses and was confused as to why she did it. Leonis was forced to reveal that he had actually lied. He did not heal Celia with Excalibur's power because he could not revive a dead person. And he said that Recilia Ray Crystalia had died. Then, the story flashes back to 2 years ago. Celia is training against robots in order to awaken her Excalibur. Seeing Celia, who had difficulty fighting the robot, Regina became worried. However, she remained silent because she wanted to appreciate Celia's hard work. When Celia, who had just stood back up, the useless NPC, aka Muzel, came to stop Celia's training. It turned out that Muzel had been eyeing Celia's body for a long time, but he was always rejected by Celia. Seeing Celia being bullied by a useless NPC, Regina immediately took out her Excalibur. However, Muzel suddenly became sanctimonious and said it was forbidden to take out Excalibur to others. Regina said that she was sure that after Celia's Excalibur awakened, NPCs like Muzel were just dust. But Celia didn't want to use Excalibur for something like that. Then the story returns to the present. Celia, who has just woken up, feels confused because she was in the bathroom before. Leo said that he carried her to bed without seeing her body at all by using magic. He must be lying, guys. Celia asked, "Who is Leonis?" Not wanting to be known as the Demon King, Leonis said he was an ancient wizard who had been resurrected. And when in the ruins earlier, Leonis raised Celia from the dead with magic. She tried to use the 10th level spell, Create Elder Undead, and it made Celia the strongest undead, the Vampire Queen. The proof was that she sucked Leonis' blood to recharge her magic energy. Celia said that when she was 9 years old, the town was attacked by a void, and her entire family died to protect the townspeople, and she fought the voids to revive her Excalibur. Celia asked if he could still have Excalibur even though she had died, Leonis wasn't sure, but he believed that Celia could still be much stronger. Long story short, Leonis is now wearing the academy uniform. He is then asked by Celia to choose the food menu he wants. Celia told Leonis to choose nutritious food, but Leonis said, "Does an undead still think about nutrition?" Leonis arrogantly wanted to pay with 1 gold coin, which he thought could buy the whole restaurant. But Celia said that gold coins were useless here. Leonis, who had brought 2,000 gold coins, was shocked. Poor Leonis. Shortly after that, there was a girl who was being charged for her debt by 2 men. They didn't want her to pay next week, and they wanted to take away the clothes she was wearing. And then, she told them to come again next week. The girl was Celia's friend, named Sakuya, while the man was a casino guard thug. She lost when she played at the casino. Sakuya is the vanguard in Celia's platoon. She is also famous for having eliminated voids by herself. Her full name is Sakuya Siglinda. In the end, Leonis and Sakuya were treated to a meal by Celia. While eating, Leonis asked about the clothes worn by Sakuya, and it turns out that the clothes are traditional clothes of her hometown, a memento from her brother. Unfortunately, her entire clan had been wiped out by the void attack. That's why she wanted to eradicate them. Then Regina and Fine came to collect her debt. Oh my gosh, she really was a pro player in debt. After that, Leonis will take a test to confirm the type of his Excalibur. For the beginning, Leonis is asked to show his Excalibur. He claimed his stick was a support type. But when he was asked to face 3 Void Simulator robots, suddenly the Void Simulator metal was instantly destroyed. This made him even more suspicious by everyone there. The teacher wanted to repeat the test once again, but he was stopped by a useless NPC aka Muzel. He intends to replace the Void Simulator to test Leonis' Excalibur. Celia felt that Muzel was cheating because there were 5 of them, but Muzel said, "That's the power of my Excalibur Dominion absolute domination." Leonis felt that it was no problem and intended to defeat them all. Celia would join the fight as she was Leonis' guardian. Hearing that, of course Muzel was happy and he made a deal. If he won, then Celia should join his platoon. But if Leonis won, then Muzel was forbidden to bother Celia again. Celia was worried, but Leonis said he wouldn't give up his familiar to anyone. Once everyone was ready, the battle between Leonis and Celia against a team of useless NPCs began. It was pretty cool that even without Excalibur, Celia was able to take on 2 Muzel dolls. Seeing that, Leonis seemed to have guessed that it was the effect of the Vampire Queen's power. While Celia was holding back the 2 Muzel dolls, one of the dolls attacked Leonis, who had been standing still. Without any movement at all, Leonis was able to defeat it with a shadow move. Not only perverted, but he is also overpowered, guys. Celia knocked back the 2 Excalibur users in front of her. She also provoked Muzel, who was always hiding behind her dolls. Not long after, Regina was seen running to the Excalibur exam building because she just remembered Leonis' exam was being held. She was surprised to see Celia and Leonis fighting with Muzel's party. And amazingly, Celia managed to knock them out without Excalibur. But when she was about to attack Muzel, this NPC suddenly used his Excalibur, Force Domination, which made Celia unable to move. After stopping Celia's movement, Muzel was going to defeat Leonis first. But Leonis heard Celia, who kept saying she would protect him, and magically, Celia's hair slowly gave off a white light, which made everyone there amazed to see Celia's Excalibur in the form of a sword. Muzel was shocked that Celia could break her dominance. In the end, Muzel's Excalibur was cut by Celia. Meanwhile, the consciousness of all the girls who became her dolls had now returned. Thinking it was impossible to win from Celia, Muzel chose to give up. Regina was very happy to see Celia's Excalibur. After arriving at the dormitory, Celia thanked Leonis because thanks to him, her Excalibur could be resurrected. Celia asked, "What is the familiar that Leonis said earlier?" He replied, "It is his protector." Celia was happy and would continue to protect Leonis. Celia asked Leonis to make her stronger. Afterwards, they celebrated Leonis' joining and the resurrection of Celia's Excalibur. They were all happy that Celia's efforts had finally paid off. They debated what a suitable name for Celia's Excalibur would be. but Celia wanted to name it after she mastered her Excalibur. Elfine then asked Leonis to come to her room because she would register Leonis's biometric data. Then Sakuya asked, Leonis chose to sleep in whose room, and they all offered their own rooms. Suddenly Celia forbade them, because Celia had found Leonis, and Leonis is also more comfortable with Celia because it is easier to keep their secrets. Long story short, Leonis is in Elfine's room to be recorded by Elfine's Excalibur called Eye of the Witch. Elfine said that she used to be a vanguard attacker in her platoon, but due to an incident, 2 of her partners died due to voids. Therefore, her Excalibur lost its original power. And when she was desperate, Celia invited her to join her platoon. Elfine said, although Leo's face is adorable, but likes to glance at the big watermelon. Suddenly, Leonis was shocked, but Elfine was just joking. Then Leonis looked at the map on the monitor, but I'm sure your eyes must be on the other object, guys. Elfine intends to lend her tablet to view the map. Long story short, after Leonis looked for information about the location of the Death Hold and the location when he fought with the great sage Erikael, Leonis called Blackus to get information. Blackus said that there was a large magic crystal under the island. Humans call it a magical furnace. Hearing this, Leonis wondered if the crystal was the same as Lord Kijin Dissolves. Although it is almost the same, Blackass said the difference is that the round pillar of the magic circuit is more complicated and flows magic throughout the city. Then Blackass left and Sherry appeared. However, she brought a donut and other food. Leonis scolded him because he thought Sherry was just playing around, but it turns out that Sherry is also collecting information, namely, throughout the city no one knows about the Demon King or the war 1,000 years ago. Hearing the sound of water, Sherry asked if he made the girl familiar. Sherry said he was a dumb demon king, but Leonis said that she was a vampire queen who could be his right hand. That makes Sherry jealous and angry at Leonis, and suddenly Celia came out of the bathroom. Fortunately, Sherry had disappeared. Meanwhile, a team is investigating voids under the sea. They found something strange, and suddenly the void attacked them.
The story then rewinds to the year 432 of the Great Calendar, when Leonis was one of the 6 holy heroes of the world. He was with a mysterious man who couldn't open his eyes. The man led Leonis to see a giant orc, destroying nearby villages. Finally, the man opened his eyes, but he had a very suspicious look. When they arrived at the place, Leo wondered where the monsters were, but the man had disappeared. Feeling threatened, Leonis tried to draw his sword, but 3 wizards used barrier magic to trap Leonis. 5 other soldiers ran to restrain him. After he was caught, they pulled him and stopped him from moving, but he managed to free one of his legs. However, the men stabbed him with spears. Leo tried to fight back, but he had already lost too much blood. Then the men dropped him to the floor as his body lay lifeless. They were happy to finally have defeated Leonis, because the people preferred him to the king. When they left, Leonis heard a heavenly voice wondering why he fell for their trap, even though he had realized it. The voice asked him, "Is he not resentful for being betrayed?" Leonis was not resentful, and he did not consider them evil. Leonis didn't care about the world's right or wrong. However, the goddess wanted to start a rebellion against the world. When Leo asked why she invited him, she said that there was something that could only be seen by him. But then she revealed that she was lying. The real reason was because she had been watching him all this time and had fallen in love with him. She said that being a hero was boring and it would be better for Leonis to be hers. And Leo woke up from his dream. He walked over to Celia and told his accomplice to wake up. Celia's body automatically woke up, wondering what had gotten into her. Leo then showed the mark on his arm and said that it could activate the seal on Celia's thigh. With that, Leo could command Celia. Well, anything. Including men's favorite things, if you know what I mean. Leonis protests to Celia because she sucks his bodily fluids while Leo sleeps. Celia apologizes because she can't control her desire to suck his blood while sleeping. But Leo tells her that he doesn't mind if Celia sucks his fluids because Celia is now his accomplice. "But please ask permission first, Celia. Don't just suck it." Then, suddenly, Fine called Celia and told her that there was a massive meeting where the leaders talked about the colossal events at sea last night. She said that there was a problem that the results of the investigation team did not appear in the database, but I think the only problem was her armadillo in the back. After hanging up the phone, Celia tells Leo that they won't have school today, so she wants to spend her time training with him. Leo teases Celia, who is very excited because her energy is full after sucking Leonis's bodily fluids. At the same time, the generals on the island are still looking for the missing divers, but when they retrieve the footage from the night before, they realize that the void caused their disappearance. The third assault garden attack 6 years ago will not be forgotten. One of the generals said that the citizens had gotten used to training, but knowing that preparing to attack would cause panic. Just then the phone started ringing, and after one of the commanders hung up, he revealed that there would be a re-investigation. At the same time, Celia is practicing against the training robots, and after knocking them down and slashing one of them, the system finishes its session. Leo thinks that it's really amazing how gracefully she handles the sword and wonders if she has been trained in the past. She reveals that since her family died, she has always self-taught all the sword techniques. To cheer her up, Leo says that he will teach her how to extract the full potential of the Vampire Queen's magic and use her own mana to enhance her physical abilities. However, he wanted to give her a real challenge and summoned his staff before surrounding them with a magical concealment sphere from the ground. He started to bring up a swarm of skeletons, but Celia was scared because she had never seen skeletons before. Celia started rushing towards them one by one. She started slashing them all and jumping to avoid their attacks. When Leo summoned hundreds again by the time she defeated them all, she groaned because of how tired she was. So Leo returned the skeletons. She bowed to thank him, and Leo offered to replenish her mana. Celia says that she has grown much stronger than before, even though she still wants Leo to train her harder. Then Celia wanted to treat Leo, but Leo refused, even though his stomach started growling. Meanwhile, Fine's orbs were scouting Assault Garden, and a team under the island was combing through the area there. On the other hand, Sakuya, the pro gambler who never wins. She saw Blackass sitting alone, and when she got closer, she realized that the wolf didn't have a collar, so she decided to name him Kurogane Mofumofu. But when he growled at her, she tied some food to him and said goodbye. Inside the dorm, Regina told Fine to try the food she had made. Fine said it tasted perfect. Then Sakuya, the goddess of gambling, came in. She told them that she had just met a big dog and named him Kurogana. And without hesitation, Sakuya took the food from Regina because she hadn't eaten that day. Her money was all gone from gambling. After that, Regina wondered why Fine was wearing her uniform on her day off. Fine revealed that she was still investigating the incident underwater yesterday. And after eating, the goddess of gambling fell asleep sitting up. In the city, Leo was still amazed to see how well developed their civilization was and how everyone lived in peace. Meanwhile, the idiot Sherry had become a cook to feed Leo the best food, and when his boss asked her to cut potatoes, she told him that she had a sharper knife, but she cut everything along with the plate. Her boss yelled, saying she was so stupid, and she was given the task of cleaning the outside of the store only. And she saw Celia, who was taking Leo around, and when Celia left after getting food for him, Sherry stared with jealousy and wondered why she dared to do that to the Demon King. A few minutes later, they arrived at the restaurant she was referring to. She wanted to show him, but when a group of children came out, Leonis wondered why they came to the orphanage. But Celia told him that they made money by selling food like a restaurant. And when Leo saw how some of them were his age in the old days, he remembered the days when he was starving with almost no money. Seeing the smile around them, he was glad that this world really cared about the children. Then a fat kid asked him if he was friends with Celia, but this ugly Demon King didn't answer. Then they went in, and when Celia unpacked some things, the naughty boy came to open Celia's skirt. But before Leo could give him a lesson, Celia said that he was just an innocent child. So he pulled his shadows away. Then the orphanage caretaker finally came. Her name was Frenia, and Celia told her that he was a swordsman she found in the ruins. And all the children ran and thought he was the coolest person for surviving the void. The orphanage caretaker told the children to give him some peace, and when Celia revealed that she brought donuts, All the children ran and were very happy to eat their favorite food. Meanwhile, Leo looked at them. He realized that this was the place that Celia wanted to protect, but the place he wanted to protect was gone. Under the sea, the new divers wondered where the structure had disappeared. But inside, a man heard a vibration on the wall, and Fine looked at the monitor. She read the vibration, while Sakuya felt it. Two men were talking. They were shocked when they saw giant branches around the facility, ready to devour their worthless butts because of too much sleep. Meanwhile, Leo was enjoying eating donuts with the children of the orphanage. We get a flashback of Leonis when he was a hero. A city in the kingdom was under attack by ogres, and everyone was freaking out. The heroes Thierry, Arakael, and Leonis had to take them out. Arakael was about to use a big spell, but he had a twisted plan. He wanted to kill the ogres and the people, and then have Thierry bring the people back to life. But Leonis didn't like that idea. He didn't want the people to suffer, so he cut Arakael's spell in half with his sword. Arakael was pissed, but Leonis, who was only 12 years old, didn't care. He jumped down and started fighting the ogres by himself. He sliced one ogre and wrestled another one. The people were amazed by him. They saw him as a true hero and loved him. But the other two heroes hated him, especially Arakael. Back to the present, we see Arakael's monster form sneaking into the underground in the Assault City. Meanwhile, in the HQ of the Assault City, they get a report that the huge tree is gone. They think it might be a void, and they want to find it and stop it. They call Elphine and let her tell them what she found out. She says she saw something underground in District 62. She also says there was a magic energy spike at the same time. Then she says it happened again a few minutes later. She checked all the data and figured out it was a void. Everyone freaks out. They can't believe a void got into the underground. The data team looks at the new info and the old info and says it's true. The old man is confused and asks why their void detector didn't go off. The analyst says the void had weak magic waves, so the detector didn't catch it. It thought it was just a normal accident, but the general still doesn't get how the void got into the Assault City. The girl says there are some parts of the city that could let it in. Then an alarm goes off, and the analyst says something is moving in District 31. The old man is confused again, and asks why it's not using magic. Elphine quickly says the void is hiding its power so they won't find it. The old man says that's impossible, because voids are dumb. But Elphine asks him if they have any clues about what happened to the last investigation team. Another alarm goes off, this time from the stock department. They say they found some tree roots there. Meanwhile, in Elphine's room, Regina is worried because she can't reach Celia. Elphine asks if she knows where Celia is, and Regina says she must be at the orphanage with Leonis. Elphine tracks them with GPS, but Regina asks her if there are really voids in the city. Elphine says yes and tells Regina and Sakuya to be careful. At the orphanage, the kids are having lunch when one of them asks Leonis to show him his holy sword. Leonis is annoyed because the kid just spit on his face. But there's a girl named Chisela who stops the kid and gives Leonis her handkerchief. Leonis thinks she's nice and polite, but she has a crush on him. She calls him cool for having a holy sword and then runs back to her tomato land. At the HQ, they find some clues about what's going on. They see some footprints and a hallway full of tree roots. The guys there wait for orders to destroy the roots. But then the roots start to swell and grow eyes. They attack the guys and cut off the communication. The general now thinks it's a void, but he doesn't know how it got into the underground. The old man asks why their air defenses are so good, but their underground ones suck. Harry Potter starts to freak out and wants to evacuate the city, but they can't reach the city commander. Things get worse when the analyst says the roots messed up the communication system in the city. Harry Potter uses his iPad to hack the system and get some communication back. Two guys survive the last attack, but they let the void get away. They also can't track the void right now. The general freaks out because voids usually attack non-stop, but this one ran away. The analysts figure out the void went through the energy corridor, but they don't know why. Elphine realizes it's going for the magic energy core that powers the city. She says, if it's a Void Lord, it will use the core to make a huge stampede. Everyone freaks out and tells them to protect the core and turn on all the defenses. But then, the tree roots break through the walls and try to get to the core. The defense system shoots at the roots and the troops show up. But the defense system is losing. They change their plan to not only defend the core, but also get the people out of there and get ready for a stampede. At the orphanage, this annoying kid still wants to see Leonis' holy sword. Phrynia tells the kids to stop because a holy sword is not a toy. But Celia asks him to show it because she's his familiar. He agrees to play with the kids, but in his own way. He summons a mini skeleton and makes it dance like a puppet, but the kids think it's gross. The soldiers are still fighting the roots, but they stop when they get to the core. It forces its way in and starts making voids. The city alarm goes off and Celia and Leonis run outside. They see a stampede hitting their city. The city's defense system turns on using backup energy, but it will take 3 days for them to get any help. The generals wonder if they will make it, but one of them says the students are ready. Elphine, Sakuya, and Regina are getting people out of the city, but Regina is still freaking out about Celia. Elphine tells her to relax, Celia will be there soon. She says they have to deal with the voids first. The sky is full of them, but the city guns are blasting them away. The girls get to a roof and start whipping out their holy swords and kicking ass. Meanwhile, Leonis is watching from far away and thinks the void dudes are pretty tough. Celia starts to freak out and goes back inside, saying they have to get the kids out. Leonis tries to follow her, but Sherry stops him and asks what he wants to do. He wonders how she got there so fast. She lies and says she wasn't spying on Celia. He doesn't care and tells her to watch his pets. Sherry says she wants to watch him, but he tells her to scram. Celia yells for Leonis, saying the kids are ready to go. But Leonis sees something and tells her it's not safe outside. There's a big void dragon. Celia goes out to fight it. She pulls out her holy sword, but Leonis can tell she's not using her full power as a vampire queen. He asks if she's scared. She says yes, but she can't chicken out and let the kids die. He smiles and summons his staff. He decides he won't let his best pet die. 2 voids attack, but Celia kills them. She sees 2 more on fire and realizes Leonis did it. She asks if that's his power, but he just focuses on the next targets. More and more voids show up in the city. Sakuya sees some ogres and jumps in with her sword. She makes them into barbecue meat. Regina uses her big cannon to shoot down dragons. Elphine uses her stuff to scout the area. Then they feel the ground shake and see a huge void hydra. The city guns can't handle all the voids and they get destroyed. Leonis looks at the voids and recognizes them from 1,000 years ago. Even the great dragons became corrupted and became voids. He knows he can't use weak spells. He tells Celia to cover him while he casts a strong spell. She runs ahead and fights the voids. He starts casting, but he doesn't know why. He's the great demon lord. He shouldn't care about humans, but he can't stand someone messing with him and his family. A huge dragon comes at him and he casts a level 10 spell. Fireballs rain from the sky and hit the ground. Celia is scared of the fireballs, but Leonis tells her to stay still. He pins the dragon down, but it breathes fire at Celia. She dodges it, and Leonis curses his weak body. Then Blackus pops out of the shadow and bites the dragon's neck. Leonis uses this chance to cast another level 10 spell. Gravity crushes the dragon to the floor. Celia can't believe Leonis beat such a big void. But then the ground starts to fall apart. The 3 roots show up again and grab Celia. They pull her into the hole. Leonis tries to help her, but some roots block him. The roots take some shape and say his name. Leonis smiles and knows the roots are Arakael, one of the old heroes. Flashback to 334 years ago in a gloomy castle. Young Leonis is meeting with Roselia, who's eager to hear about his latest battle. He'd faced off against a pretty tough enemy, but the immortal demon lord was no match for him. And he didn't come back empty-handed. He'd brought back treasures from the palaces they'd raided, a little gift that Roselia was stoked about. But for now, it would be kept under wraps. A spell learned from the Prince of Shadows, Blackus, who was his loyal sidekick. Even though his kingdom had fallen, he could save them all with his shadow. Fast forward to the present, where Leo discovers that the mysterious monster was one of the Great 6 heroes. He casts a fire spell to try to see under the earth, but quickly remembers that he has a seal which connects him with Celia, so he can confirm that she is alive. Suddenly, Blackus appears from the shadows, lamenting that they have to face that old enemy again. But Leo suspects that Arakael is not just a monster, but perhaps their own king. And although Blackus couldn't believe that his old enemy is still alive, this gave him hope. If he was alive, then it was very likely that Recilia had also revived. But for now, Blackus wanted to know what they would do with all the children since they were in the middle of an attack. But while Leonis was observing them, he could recognize that look where too much power terrifies people's hearts, something that was repeated over the years, both in the past and in the present. So he went directly to the little ones to ask them to take shelter in the cabin. Although he believed that they would hate him since he let them kidnap Celia, he still swore that he would do whatever it took to bring Celia back to make all the children happy. So it was time to leave, using an underwater barrier spell which would protect the children's home. But for extra security, he would bring in his strongest elite men who would also protect them. So nothing bad would happen to them as long as they stay inside the restaurant. And although this made the children happy, a part of Leo wondered if he really wanted to protect them. But he quickly remembered that it is his duty to protect the home of the Tribe of the Sword. Although before leaving, Blackus shows him what a human gave him, being a little food. So Leo wanted to know where he got it from. But Blackus stressed that he doesn't know her name, only that it was a kind girl who put food on his neck after he let her caress him. Blackus hears a faint sound, and when he investigates, he finds Riesel's communicator. The girls are trying to figure out how he's doing. In the heart of the city, Sakuya is battling a massive monster, managing to take down some of its heads. She's backed up by Regina, who despite being practically exhausted, doesn't stop using her spiritual weapon to bombard the monster. Meanwhile, the End is calling for reinforcements from above since they know they couldn't hesitate without Celia. But Leonis grabs the communicator to update Celia on the current situation, promising that he will bring her back, although he needs her location. He hoped that she would use the spheres to get a better location, but in the end, she refused to help him, asking him to wait for the army. Although Leonis was firm that he would go with or without their help. However, in the end, she didn't know what to do since her friends were at their limit, where they even had to fight dragons. But thanks to Regina's power, they were immediately eliminated. Even so, the protagonist finally asked her to see his spheres, where they had a strange round mark. This was caused by Leo, who would later give his explanations. So at last, without any further options, she revealed the location of her friend, who was in the underground sector number 7 near the heart of the assault garden. Then Leo says, "Thank you." Suddenly, the void attack Elfine. But luckily that fool Sherry saved the day with her whip. But she immediately hid, so it's not to be noticed. But even so, that was better than a boring part-time job. Once with the information from Celia, Leonis arrived at Sector 7, where with her trusty Corcel Blackus, they would go for Arakael. Although Blackus recognizes the area already, it exploded before, so it will be easy to get there. Although he asks his master why he doesn't use Sherry for the mission, but Leonis states that although she tried many times and has a good level of combat, she is not up to the situation. Even so, Blackus wanted to know why he did so much for humans, so his master had to admit that he really likes humans. But to get there even faster, he would burn the entire wall. But to his surprise, Arakael had taken full control of the area. But this did not matter to Leo, who was sure that he would recover his family. So he quickly invoked a fire spell, with which he hoped to quickly finish off his algae. And although this worked quite well, Arakael had a very strong regenerative power, managing to remain practically as good as new. But Arakael would recognize his old enemy, where he would ask him how he is alive since he must have died about 1,000 years ago. Although Arakael called him stupid since those 1,000 years in which he was not there, the world changed drastically, revealing that this world regenerates with the empty star, something that Leonis could not understand. So he asked him for an explanation. He summons tiny spirit crystals, which are actually captured monks. This throws Leo for a loop since he was working with the monks of the old Holy Order, and Riesel was trapped inside Arakael. She couldn't move, but hearing Leo's voice, she managed to calm down. But Arakael wasn't going to make it easy. He tried to attack the ugly demon lord, who had no choice but to start using spells to eliminate him with the help of Blackus. Blackus was bummed about the situation since Arakael's power didn't seem to have decreased, so the battle wouldn't be easy. Leo noticed a bit more power, assuming that he was absorbing the power of the city. But Arakael, knowing immediately, used multiple spiritual magic, which gave him the advantage of shooting in all directions. Although Leo dodged the sword, he couldn't avoid a blow to the arm, which made him angry. So he tried again to finish off his enemy with Blackus's magical power. But his attacks had no effect since the captured mini-monks gave him too much magical power. So he would defend and attack eternally. With practically no options, Leo began to apologize to Blackus since he was about to do something stupid. At that moment, Celia was looking for a way to free herself since she wanted to help Leonis. The more force she exerted, she only managed to get the seaweed to cut her. But none of this mattered to her. Celia, who regretted being so weak, was able to invoke her Excalibur sword thanks to that. Leonis kept trying to get closer using spells to wear down Arakael, looking for the right moment. Celia, using her blood which had been spilled on the wall, made it obey her by cutting all the algae. After all, she was the vampire queen. Just at that moment, Leonis was able to determine her location by shooting something at her chest, which gave her a powerful transformation, immediately freeing herself from Arakael's algae. But at that moment, Blackus had to retreat since he had used more magic power than necessary. Although, since it was her first transformation, she almost fell due to not knowing how to use her wings. But Leo managed to stabilize her, glad that she finally managed to use the power of the vampires. Although Riesel admitted that it was thanks to him for shooting his blood into her chest, Leo knew that was just a small activator, and the true force was inside her. An angry man interrupts them, assuring that if he cannot eliminate them directly, he will do so indirectly by starting to gather all his power. Blackus recognized immediately since he was thinking of burning everything in the area, both his enemies, the city, and him if necessary. But Leonis had a solution, although it would take some time. So he needed Celia, who should take care of him a little, which she swore to do, showing the power of her holy sword. With a little bit of blood, she was able to finish off the other algae, leaving the path clear for Leonis, who he planned to use in the gift that was once given to him in the past. Since there was no more need to contain himself with Celia safe, he quickly remembered Roselia, who warned him that the sword questioned the truth. In other words, it retained its will as a sacred sword despite being a demonic sword, and not being met that condition. The sword couldn't be used, but as Riesel kept defending, he knew he'd use his sword to protect the kingdom, something he really wanted to do. He managed to dismantle the sword, which Roselia once told him was a sacred sword given by the gods to save the world. This blew Arakael away since it was impossible for Leonis to use it. Even though he knew he'd lose, the ugly demon lord warned him that his destiny is perdition. But before taking him down, Leo assured him that he'd be able to defeat any evil, managing to slice Arakael in half. Arakael ceased to exist in that world, so the boys had no more orders, stopped appearing, and the few who remained stopped attacking. The headquarters noticed and were surprised that today wouldn't be their last day on Earth. The command center quickly noticed an explosion that came directly from the magic furnace. They assumed that their leader was stuck, and for consuming so much magical power, it exploded. It was a stroke of luck, but in reality, it was thanks to our protagonists. They met with their friends, happy that everyone was safe and no one was hurt. But the next morning, Leonis didn't want to get up from bed, or rather, he couldn't. His weak body was used more than necessary, so he was practically exhausted. Not to mention that his magic power was also on the floor. Riesel quickly appeared because she wanted to bring him some gifts, like a necklace that the children made since he bravely protected them. This made Leo happy. Riesel wanted to ask him for some blood since she lost a lot in combat, which the boy had no problem with until his friends discovered her by mistake, leaving her looking like a big pervert. After dealing with the voids, they started fixing things again. The magic crystal that gave power to people was broken, so they used solar panels until it was fixed. Leonis, even though he said this was his kingdom, didn't know a lot of things, so he decided to learn more. But when he tried to go into a place using his card, he couldn't. The spirit there told him he needed permission to enter the library. Leonis was surprised that the spirit was still alive in this time. He told the spirit he was a student at the academy. The spirit told him to go to the administration to get permission. Just when Leonis was getting annoyed, Regina showed up. She closed his eyes and asked him to guess who it was. Leonis knew it was her and told her they were in a public place. She told him to pretend he didn't know her and enjoy the feeling of her chest against him. He asked if she was there just to tease him. She said she was returning some software books and asked what he was doing there. Leonis lied and said he was looking for an old text about the letters they found where he was sealed. He hoped it would help him remember his past. Regina didn't believe him, but said it was sad that he couldn't remember his past. She then went to the spirit and asked to enter. The spirit was about to say no, but Regina stared at him and he let her in. Leonis asked if she could control spirits. Regina said it was just a trick and asked him to keep it a secret. He was surprised to learn that spirits were being made artificially. He asked what happened to the original spirit. Regina said it disappeared before the Void's attack started, but some people say it's still in the ancient forest. There, she found a record of the ancient languages, but they were interrupted by a call on their phones. They were invited to a party. It was being organized by the 4th Imperial Princess, Alteria Rey Oltriza. Leonis found this useful because the royal family was in charge of everything. Then Celia called him and asked where he was. He said he was sorting something out. She said they would eat together, but Leonis said he would eat with her later. He told Regina that after he checked everything, he would meet them at the port. Regina told him not to worry and to have fun. Meanwhile, a group of ugly demi-humans were hiding and planning. They wanted to kidnap the 4th princess. They wanted to use her to free their friends in the capital. They were surprised that humans lived in peace while they suffered outside. But when they were talking, the ugly goblin, aka Elsa, asked if they could fight the humans who had the sacred swords. They started arguing because of his question. Then a woman, who was hiding in the trees, started talking. She talked about their doubts and their determination. When she appeared, the lion asked who she was. She said she was a demi-human like them, and that she hated humans. The old elf asked if she came to help with the kidnapping. She said she came to give them power, a power greater than the sacred swords. She released mana and a sacred sword appeared. She aimed it at the lion and a magic circle appeared. She said she was giving him power, and it seemed to work. They were surprised because only humans could have sacred swords. But she explained that it was not a sacred sword, but a demonic sword given by the goddess. The ugly demi-human started to believe that with this power, they could kidnap the princess. The elf said she would give each of them a demonic sword. She suggested they go to Hyperion soon and get the princess. They were excited to save their friends, but the elf asked them to do her a favor. She said her goddess needed a sacrifice and asked them to leave at least one sacred sword user alive. They agreed. The Black Lion asked her name and she said she was Sharnak, the witch of Everdark Forest. Leonis arrived at the port and was impressed by the new ship. He thought his empire needed at least 2 of these. He went to buy something for his servants and found an elf-made ornament at a stall. He was surprised to see elves there. The man at the stall told him that there were elves, werewolves, and even tigermen among the people there. Then the princess appeared to greet everyone. Regina watched her from afar. Leonis went to see what was happening. He thought about how popular the princess was. Then the girls came and said they were looking for him. One of them started complaining and talking a lot. Leonis gave her a cat pendant that he bought for her. She was very happy, and he noticed that her mood improved a little. She joked with him that if he continued like this, he would become a demon king in the future. He realized she was teasing him. She called them to get on the ship. Leonis asked if Regina wasn't coming. He thought she would like this kind of thing, but they didn't answer his question honestly. Then someone called Celia. She recognized the blonde girl as Fenris. Fenris asked if Celia wanted to see the ship. Celia said they were invited to the social meeting. Fenris said she was there as a representative of the executive department. She implied that the people in this department were busy, unlike Celia, who seemed like an idiot. Then Elphine came to stop their childish fight. She said she didn't want to upset her senior. Before leaving, Fenris asked about Celia's Excalibur sword. She heard about her awakening and congratulated her. Inside the ship, the guards were surprised and shut down. After killing them, they used their faces as masks to assume their identities. Inside the party, the girls continued their crazy things. Leonis looked at the book he copied with his automatic magic. He was sure that someone was covering up the past. He said there was nothing about the 6 heroes or the gods of the past. They said the records were lost in the past, but there were no records about when magic became extinct or when magical technology began. To pass the time, he started talking about his current favorite drink. Then Fool Sherry appeared. He said he didn't ask for her to appear there, but she insisted that she needed to. He asked how things were going. She said the source of this ship was also a magical crystal, armed with the same defense as the city. She said she found a flying weapon in it. He continued asking questions, but she said she still needed to investigate. Then he gave her a gift. He gave her a churros, which made her angry. She said a gift shouldn't specifically be food, and called him stupid. Then when he was about to fight with her, Celia arrived and called him. Leonis quickly hid everything when he saw Celia in a bikini asking him to swim. He made excuses, saying that humans weren't made for swimming, and he didn't have shorts. But Celia solved this quickly. She said if he couldn't swim, she would teach him. Soon Leonis was embarrassed because he didn't know how to swim. He was also distracted by the floats on Celia's swimsuit. Fine even said it was good for Leonis because he learned to swim quickly. People started talking about him, and the girls gave him a swimming lesson, which frustrated Leonis more. In the afternoon, Regina was alone eating when guards passed by her. They said the time for the meeting was coming. She wondered what she was doing. Inside the ship, the demi-human managed to catch the princess while she was being transported. The princess let her pet run away. The witch told them to leave it alone. Inside the hall, the useless demi-human revealed themselves after firing their first shots. Leonis quickly realized there must be more of them there. The wolf activated his sword, and they were surprised that he had Excalibur. Fenris tried to activate her Excalibur, but she was stopped. Then the old elf threw an explosive apple near them. He said if they tried to activate their swords, it would explode. Since they had no way out, they were only left with fear. They took the cell phones and started saying that the princess would be kidnapped. A man asked what they wanted. The wolf said they wanted to free their companions. But Fenris said the Empire wouldn't negotiate with a terrorist like him. He got angry and wanted to kill her, but useless Elsa stopped him. She said they were not allowed to kill Excalibur users. He understood since they would be a sacrifice for the goddess. This caught Leonis' attention. While he showed himself with the power of the goddess, Leonis said he would guarantee the princess's safety and disappeared. The girls tried to cover up his disappearance. Meanwhile, the demi-human forced the princess to activate the insignia. She asked if they would keep the people on the battleship safe. The witch said yes. The princess continued following orders, but then an invasion of voids appeared. The witch ordered them to go towards the voids. She said whoever wielded the Excalibur in fear would be a good sacrifice for their goddess. When the lion realized what the witch was really like, he thought about killing her. But the fire from his sword began to burn him. She asked him if he thought he could kill her with the sword she gave him. Then she told the one who was left that if he wanted to live, he had to keep listening to her. Outside, the ship started to leave. Regina found this strange. As she got closer, the princess's fox came to her. When she touched it, a message from the princess said that the ship had been taken hostage and she needed to do something. Then she jumped onto the moving ship. We go back to Leonis, who was lost until he found the fox. He came face to face with Regina and asked what she was doing there. But Regina seemed upset. She said she needed to act quickly because her sister was in danger. That night, a red star named Scarlet Calamity lit up the sky. The word on the street was that as long as that star was in sight, the royal baby was considered a no-show. So the king, sticking to this rule, planned to off the fourth princess. But Duke Cristalia got wind of this and wasn't having any of it. The baby was supposedly ditched in the woods, but that was all smoke and mirrors. In reality, Edward, a son of Duke Cristalia, took the kid in. He and his wife were over the moon to have a daughter, and she even scored a sister. As time went on, this daughter had to keep her real identity under wraps and ended up as the personal assistant to a gal her age. Then, Regina spills the beans about her real name, Regina Ray Oltrees, and says only the folks in Division 18 are in the know. Regina tells Leonis she was just there to find her sister, who was en route to the capital. The boy wonders if that spirit could be Princess Alteria's, and Regina explains that the royal family members are blessed with the power of spiritual princesses. After the spirit carbuncle was brought back under control, Regina said they'd be able to steer the ship again. But Leonis noticed that the fleet ship kept moving, even without the spirit being near the princess. Hearing this, Regina figured something might have happened to the princess. Leonis then spilled the beans that she'd been kidnapped, probably by demons who also took over the party room. He said Celia and the others were looking for a way to bust out and save the princess. Leonis thought there might be some survivors in the corridors. Regina then set the spirit on the ground to lead the way. Meanwhile, in the hall, Fenris wondered where the ship was headed. The wolf noticed the girl's bravery and decided to freak her out by saying that if anyone used their Excalibur, the old elf would blow up the apple bomb. Elphine told Celia she'd already checked out the bomb because she'd left a piece of her holy sword behind the chandelier without the enemy noticing. Celia asked when she did that, and Elphine explained she'd been interested in analyzing the ship and had already directed her sacred sword at it before the party started. She said the elf planned to send a detonation signal to the bomb through a wand. Celia got that if they blocked the signal, they'd be golden, but Elphine said part of her sword might not be able to block the whole signal. Still, she thought she could block the bomb for at least a second. Celia said she'd cover her. Even though she couldn't use her sword, Celia could still use her vampire power. She pricked her finger and drew some blood. Meanwhile, Leonis and Regina got to where the princess had been, but the place was already locked down and all the ship's functions were disabled. Regina couldn't control it anymore. She said she'd heard the princess's voice from the spirit not long ago. If she could hear it again, she'd know where the princess was. Leonis suggested she call for the princess, since she was a member of the royal family, but Regina said doing that would reveal her true identity. Leonis said this wasn't the time to worry about that. She needed to rescue her sister. Hearing this, Regina said that even though Leonis was young, sometimes he talked like an adult. She decided to try to make contact, and her sister responded by asking who she was. Regina said she was just a spirit user who happened to be passing by. She's asking where the princess is at, and Alteria says she's heading to the command deck. Regina wants to go save her, but the princess tells her to just look after the ship. She says the ship's been set to head for the void pit, so Regina needs to get to the spirit control center on the bottom floor. The princess tells her to link up the ship with her carbuncle so she can take control again. But before she can give the access code, the void pit shows up on the radar. Regina tells Leonis she's been told to take over the spirit control center on the bottom floor. He asks about the princess, and Regina says she's on her way to the command deck and they need to save her quick. But Regina knows about the danger of the voids, and Leonis tells her to get to the bottom floor as soon as possible, while he goes to save the princess. Regina ain't too sure about this, saying he can't do it alone, but Leonis says he'll be fine, and tells her to just get control of the ship back. He heads off to save the princess, saying only the Demon King has the right to kidnap a princess. Meanwhile, everyone in the party room is still being held hostage. Celia gets Elphine ready to block the bomb signal, and Fenris tells the guys to at least put the kids in the lifeboats. Then the wolf gets mad and decides to kill her, but Elsa tells him to chill. Then there's a loud noise, and Sakuya says sorry for dropping a plate. Then they ask about the rope they had tied her up with, and Sakuya says she cut it because it was stopping her from eating. The wolf starts to walk towards her, but Elsa distracts him again, saying her uniform is from the Uran warrior. The wolf remembers that Crazy Clan is known for not loving life, and it scares him. But Sakuya challenges him to a fight. Fenris steps in and says she'll fight the wolf. He agrees, but Fenris knocks him down. Seeing all the chaos, the Elf Lord decides to set off the bomb, but Elphine blocks the signal with her sacred sword. Now everyone can use their swords again. Fenris activates his Frost Wolf and summons 2 wolves to fight the wolf. They hold him down, and Celia takes on the old elf. After the dust settles, Fenris reckons her stirring things up helped them crack that problem. But Celia ain't having it, ripping into the gal for being so darn reckless. Celia tries to hit up Leonis, check if the lad's alright, but she ain't getting no signal. Peeping out the window, Elphine clocks they're in the void pit. Then, monsters start busting the ship's glass. As they swarm in, The gals try to hold him off. Elphine suggests everyone else hunker down in the room. Meanwhile, Celia gets a voice message from Leonis. He's chatting to her through the cat accessory, says the whole situation's under control. He tells her Regina's heading to the Spirit Control Center on the lowest floor to get a handle on the ship, and he wants Celia to back her up, but Celia's gotta protect the hall. Leonis says he's got it covered. The princess asks what they're planning to do with her. Sharnak spills that there's a group interested in the power of the spirit, so the princess would be a prime plaything for these sickos. Regina's trying to fight the void solo till Celia shows up to lend a hand. The other gals are still keeping the voids at bay in the party room. But then a giant octopus crashes the party. Fenris just calls it a slightly tougher than average void. Sakuya steps up to take on the octopus, telling the other gals to keep the civilians safe from the monsters. After they clear out, Sakuya whips out her demonic sword, Dark Lightning. Regina and Celia are still fending off the voids till they finally make it to the command deck. The princess reveals the access code is Scarlet Calamity, a star they gotta remember. After punching in the code, they hijack the summoning system. Regina changes the ship's course. The princess notices the ship's veering off, but so does Sharnak, who decides to intervene. But Leonis shows up to put a stop to her. He tells her she's gonna pay for her crime and for messing with his kingdom. The other gals are still battling the voids in the party room. Elphine's bullets are running low, but then Sherry shows up, wipes out all the monsters, then promptly collapses, griping about the Demon King working his servants to the bone. Sakuya finally takes down the octopus. Leonis asks Sharnak if she gave the demonic sword to the demonic animal. She's puzzled by the question and asks him who he is. He introduces himself as the Demon King. She's fuming, says a kid like him shouldn't be throwing around that name. She attacks him, but Leonis just deflects the spell, asks if she's got any more tricks. She says it's impossible for an ordinary boy to do that. Leonis explains that the magic she cast is basic magic he developed, so it ain't gonna work on him. He arrests her, asks what she's after. She says she's there to wipe out the users of the sacred sword to create the demonic sword. She reveals this is the will of the goddesses. The Demon King finds Sharnak's words a bit off, cause in his book, the gods and goddesses should have been long gone 1,000 years ago. He asks who her goddess is, but before she can spill, she gets skewered by a sword. The lad recognizes it as Zogstar Mezekis, the Demon King's killer weapon. This sword spawns a monster, and a bunch of voids pop up. Seeing this, the Demon King realizes that even the legendary weapon has succumbed to madness and turned into a Void Lord. Assessing the sitch, Leonis busts out his level 8 magic and attacks, but the magic is blocked by the void. The Demon King remembers that the sword was given by the gods to a hero, which means the sword has magic resistance. But its abilities didn't disappear after becoming a Void Lord. The monster teleports above Leonis to distract him while another void goes for the princess, but the lad spots their move and takes out the voids. The Lord teleports back above him. Meanwhile, Regina gears up to attack her target. Then the Void Lord and his minions start getting shot. She launches missile attacks against the Void Lord. Then Celia joins Leonis to help him in the fight. The lad asks her to buy him some time, so she starts attacking them. The Demon King draws his demonic sword Dainsleif, and uses a supreme technique he learned at the Ragnus Kingdom School. A flash engulfs the ship, and he finally puts an end to the Void Lord. The next day, Fenris thanks the princess for the praise on behalf of the Knights of the Holy Sword. The princess mentions she saw a young user of a sacred sword the night before. Celia explains he wasn't feeling well and asked to return home early. Then the princess changes the subject and asks about the Master of the Spirit who took control of the ship, as she also wants to thank her. Celia makes another excuse and explains she couldn't be there for some reason. However, she had left a message. She was very happy that the princess was safe and wishes the girl the best in the future. Meanwhile, Leonis is complaining about the pain. He also remembers that he was unable to get information about that goddess that Sharnak had mentioned. Regina appears there to check on the boy. Leonis says he just has body aches. The gal says she made him an apple pie, but the lad says he can eat it alone. He questions if she really doesn't want to meet her sister. Regina explains that she managed to talk to her a little, and it's all thanks to him. To thank him, she kisses Leonis on the cheek. She notices that the player's heart has started to beat faster. Then he asks her not to provoke him. But Regina explains that she is just thanking him. She asks him not to say that to Celia. The next day, a few soldiers were investigating a bunker. Meanwhile, inside the bunker, a group of ugly demi-humans were trying to escape. The two soldiers managed to enter the bunker and ambush them for infiltrating Hyperion and kidnapping Princess Alteria. The ugly demi-humans were about to be arrested because they were terrorists. One of the soldiers ordered them to surrender because they were no match for Excalibur users. However, suddenly a voice said that he was tired of hearing arrogant humans. The two soldiers panicked and searched for the source of the voice. Suddenly, a magical vortex called Vraid appeared, turning the soldiers into stone. Then, a mysterious figure with a skull head walked towards the demi-humans. He suddenly pulled out his sword and ordered the demi-humans to kneel before him, and instantly, their bodies automatically kneeled before him. The skull-headed man introduced himself as Zorbidus, and he was the Demon King and the true ruler of this world. He offered the demi-humans to become his followers. Because they had no other choice, they eventually agreed to the offer, and from now on, they are the shadows of the Demon King. Then, the ugly Demon King cast a spell to create a secret door to an underground labyrinth that humans could not see. This would eventually become the headquarters of these foolish demi-humans. Not long after, the foolish Demon King received a call, and it turned out to be from Celia. The foolish Demon King turned out to be Leonis. Celia asked for his whereabouts, but he immediately hung up and left. Meanwhile, Celia, who was in the dormitory, opened the door because she thought Leonis had arrived, but it turned out to be Sherry. Celia was confused and rubbed her eyes, and suddenly Sherry disappeared. Celia was confused and angry at Leonis for disappearing like that, even though she was Leonis's guardian. Then she immediately went to take a shower to look for Leonis. When Celia was taking a shower, Leonis suddenly appeared from the shadows and then took off his illusory cloak. He said that his familiar was too possessive, but he felt happy because he had successfully subdued the demi-humans to become his followers, and they would eventually become the foundation for the resurrection of the demon army. But in his stupidity, there was Celia wearing a bra. Leonis immediately apologized for seeing her watermelons, and the atmosphere got awkward when Regina also came in. After that, they ate together. Celia told Leonis to eat vegetables, but Leonis thought that as a Dark Lord, he didn't need to. Regina intended to drive away the crows outside because she thought the dormitory was haunted. Based on rumors, there was a big black dog ghost and a ghost girl in a maid outfit. Suddenly, this made Leonis choke. He said that they were just seeing things. And Leonis muttered because Sherry was not being vigilant. Celia asked Leonis where he had gone. Leonis made the excuse that he had just been practicing in preparation for the training match, and he wanted to make Celia proud of him. Regina said that the Fenris platoon was indeed strong, but they had to win to move up the ranks. And then, the match began. Leonis and Celia sneaked around. Leonis cast his spell, while Celia cut the flag. Their success earned praise from the spectators, especially these three cute kids, while Elphine and Regina were watching over flag number 3. When the enemy appeared, Regina quickly attacked the enemy, while Sakuya tried to distract Fenris's wolf. The military analyzed that they were using a diversion technique, and the leader was taking the flag. On the other hand, Celia was attacked by Fenris's wolf. Fenris had already guessed that Celia would be there, while Celia scolded Fenris because her attack was too painful. Celia asked why Fenris was guarding the small flag, even though she was the platoon leader. Fenris replied that she wanted to settle her score with Celia and that she had sent 2 people to target Celia's platoon's main flag. Leonis said that even though Fenris's watermelon wasn't too big, her brain was smart. If Fenris won the battle there, she would win perfectly. Then she turned her wolf into a weapon, and she gave Leonis to her friend. However, Leonis was not at all intimidated by the threat. Suddenly, Fenris attacked Celia with both of her weapons. Fortunately, Celia was able to fend them off with her sword. Celia said that if Fenris lost here, then Celia would be the winner because no one was guarding their main flag. However, Fenris managed to defeat Celia by biting Celia with her wolf. The weird girl then attacked Leonis with a gun, but that was nothing to Leonis. He easily fended her off, and then Leonis attacked her using his signature shadow technique, and that made one member of Platoon 11 defeated. Celia, who had a very strong will, was finally able to defeat Fenris with a single attack. And Fenris was speechless, so the platoon leader of 11 had lost. Leonis was proud of Celia's strength. After the match, Leonis, as usual, took a bath with Celia. He looked like he was really enjoying it, especially since there were also girls there. That dumb Regina then grabbed Sakuya's watermelon. She felt like Sakuya's watermelon was getting bigger. They discussed that they shouldn't be satisfied yet, because if Fenris hadn't targeted Celia, they probably wouldn't have been able to win. They encouraged each other and promised to fight together. Leonis didn't want to look at them because his anaconda was starting to get active. In a certain place there was a woman holding a sword. She said that this demon sword had produced the tombs of Excalibur users. She also said that Sharnak had done well, but she was curious about what had defeated Sharnak. Her name was Nephekes, a Void Lord. She was waiting for the resurrection of a goddess that had been foretold. Meanwhile, in the open sea, a strange-looking ship appeared. And at the Assault Garden headquarters, Platoon 18 received a call about the strange appearance. A female soldier said that it was the third Assault Garden that had disappeared 6 years ago due to the void, and it was heading towards the 7th Assault Garden at full speed. Elphine said that it would crash here in 7 days. In addition, an emergency beacon was seen, but the unmanned aircraft they sent was unable to get any information, so Platoon 18 was tasked with investigating the source of the beacon and searching for survivors. They must stop it as much as possible. Elphine asked why they were given this strange mission. The inspector said that it was the idea of the Management Bureau, because they were considered very strong. Leonis muttered that humans needed a hero figure like himself in the past. Celia respectfully accepted the mission. However, Leonis was not allowed to join because he was still young. Leonis refused because he was also part of Platoon 18. Celia wanted to protect the Dark Lord Leonis in her innocence. Meanwhile, Leonis told Blackus and Sherry that he had found something strange. A holy cult flag in the empty city, even though the relics of the past had disappeared. So Leonis wanted to investigate. Blackus would guard the 7th Assault Garden while Leonis was away, while Sherry would go with Leonis. They got on a plane, but inside the plane, they were fighting over who would let Leonis sleep on their lap. Regina immediately pulled Leonis onto her lap and cleaned Leonis's ears. Leonis found it very comfortable. And Leonis had a dream when he was still the Dark Lord. He enjoyed moments with Roselia. However, Roselia said that their time was running out, even though their kingdom had just been formed. She said that she would soon disappear and be reincarnated 1,000 years later. Leonis promised that if that happened, he would find her someday. And Leonis woke up, but he was on Celia's lap. Then they arrived at the 3rd Assault Garden, but their view was blocked by fog. After their plane landed there, Celia and Leonis will go to inspect the magic furnace, while the others go to look for where the emergency beacon came from. For security, Elphine entrusted her Excalibur to each member. Leonis ordered Sherry to accompany them. Sherry refused, but Leonis said that even though they were not his familiars, just consider them as his servants. Celia remembered her past there. She was very familiar with all the places there, even though they were now in ruins. And suddenly Celia's device rang, indicating that a void had been detected there. And the void was very large. Not long after that, a massive vortex appeared in Assault 3rd. A long-haired woman emerged from the vortex, naked. She looked confused by the scene and said, "Is this the world 1,000 years later?" She was confused by what had happened there because there were only rocks and abandoned modern buildings, no forests, and no signs of life. Even though she was confused, she didn't forget to steal some clothes from a store. She was sent to this world by someone because the goddess was about to awaken there. She saw a helicopter flying by, but thought it was a strange-looking dragon. Then, a man said it was a human vehicle, and he couldn't believe he was meeting the elf hero, Arli Kirlesio. The man was Nephekes, the Void Lord. Arli asked if he was also from 1,000 years ago. Nephekes replied that they were both the same, only their goals were different. Nephekes' goal was to protect the goddess's vessel, while Arle's goal was to destroy the goddess's vessel with the Krozak's demon-slaying sword. Arle suddenly attacked him, but Nephekes quickly disappeared. He said he could easily defeat humans. Then, a giant void appeared behind Arle. On the other side, Celia's leg was crushed by a piece of metal as a result of the void attack. Luckily, Leonis quickly used his shadow skill to save Celia. The void attacked Leonis with a high-level laser beam, but Leonis was able to hold it back with his barrier. Leonis attacked back, but a holy protection appeared to deflect Leonis's high-level magic. Leonis thought it was a void from an angel. From a distance, Regina, Sakuya, and Elfine saw a light coming from the location of Leonis and Celia. Elfine felt that her Excalibur, which was on Celia, had been lost. They rushed there. Meanwhile, Leonis used his Gira Eagle skill to defeat the giant void, but the void was able to break it. Leonis continued with a level 9 magic attack in the form of a mini-sun. Not enough, Leonis added a huge lightning bolt until the void was finally defeated by Leonis. Yes, as usual, Leonis always uses excessive power to fight weak enemies. Leonis approached Celia, who was useless. Leonis was worried about Celia, but Celia was acting strong, even though she was still weak. Even though she was a vampire queen, it still took a long time to heal serious injuries. Leonis was going to take Celia to hide first, because the void would definitely appear again. But behind them, 5 mysterious people who were glowing blue were visible. Leonis was about to attack them quickly, but he was stopped by Celia because her device did not give a warning signal, and it turned out that they were Crystallia Knights. They were the spirits of Celia's father's subordinates. They asked if Leonis and Celia came here because they saw the emergency flare. And it turned out that they were the ones who lit the flare. However, they did not want to ask for help, but they wanted to report because if not, the incident from 6 years ago would repeat itself. The Void Lord had just appeared there, and that's what caused them to be able to appear. Leonis thought this was very strange, because when the Void Lord Arakael appeared, this did not happen. They told that the Void Lord was hiding in the magic furnace and would soon wake up. Celia asked for information from the ghosts, but Leonis thought it was impossible for people of today to believe the report. However, because of Celia's still weak condition, they had to rest first. And the ghosts offered a house as a place to rest for them, and they also had prepared a car. Celia wondered how ghosts could drive a car, and Leonis answered that spirits are magical energy that doesn't have a physical body, so they can control the car even though it's going really slow. He then summoned a giant horse skull to pull the car. Even though they're just skulls, they're really strong and fast. Meanwhile, the girls were investigating a place when they met Arle. The naive Regina thought she was a survivor, but she suddenly came out with a sword and attacked them. Sakuya told her friends to retreat while she faced Arle. Regina then asked again if she was the one who activated the flare, but Arle didn't answer and just attacked her. Their battle was intense. In the end, Sakuya managed to corner the foolish Arle, but she stopped because she knew she would lose if Arle was in top condition. Meanwhile, in the magic furnace, Nephekes was observing the goddess who was about to awaken. In the car, Celia, as usual, wanted to suck Leonis's blood because her energy was depleted. She just went for it, which was pretty sus. Suddenly, Elfine called her. Elfine was surprised to hear Celia moaning in pleasure. She made sure if Celia and Leonis were okay. Celia reported that there was a possibility that a Void Lord had appeared in the city, and the magic furnace had reactivated because of the Void Lord. Celia invited them to gather immediately. The girls were going to go to Central Garden after treating survivors there. Celia was surprised that they found survivors. They decided to meet at the Crystallia mansion. Leonis protested because Celia always sucked him brutally, but Celia just wanted to suck him again. But Leonis stopped her and wanted to give her a gift. Ancestral ancient gown that can transform the vampire queen's magical energy to strengthen her physical body. Celia was hesitant about whether she could use it. Without saying much, Leonis put the dress in Celia's stomach. He said she just needed to imagine the dress if she wanted to use it. It was still too early for Celia, but Leonis didn't know what would happen in the future. He didn't want the previous incident to happen again. Celia had to be able to protect herself. Leonis also gave her a skeleton key as a good luck charm. Meanwhile, Regina had finished treating Arle's wounds. Elphine was amazed that, even with severe injuries, Arle was still able to fight Sakuya. They introduced themselves to each other. Elphine asked Arle why she attacked them. Arle thought that the girls were one of the allies of the monster Void Controller. She also got those wounds because she was careless when fighting the Void. However, Fine said that Arl's data was not in the database, so they asked where Arl was from. Arl asked them back why they were there, and Fine replied that they were investigating the place. Arle then replied that she came to fulfill her responsibility. Her mission was to kill the goddess. But after 1,000 years, no one remembered it. Arle thanked them and was about to leave, but suddenly a loud noise was heard. It was the sound of Arle's hungry stomach. They gave Arle some snacks. From a distance, Sherry said that Arle was one of the 6 elf heroes and the best disciple of Shardark, who was targeting the Demon King. Sherry was surprised why she was here. On the other hand, Nephekes, who was waiting for the goddess to awaken, received a report that the Angel Void had been defeated. He was surprised that the Void could be defeated. At the Crystallia mansion, Celia and Leonis had arrived. The house there was destroyed, and Celia remembered her past there. Then they entered and were greeted by the spirits. Leonis then sat on a chair and imagined his throne from the past. Celia really missed her past there with her family. She cried when she found her father's book. Suddenly, the spirits touched the ground and changed the building there to its original state. There, Celia saw herself as a child with her father. She listened to her father's story about the Demon King, who ruled until he was defeated by the heroes. But her father said he didn't know if the story continued or not. However, suddenly the shadow disappeared, and Nephekes appeared there. Celia thought he was a survivor. Nephekes felt insulted because he was called a human. Then he attacked Celia with fire magic. Leonis, who heard the commotion upstairs, ran towards Celia. Thanks for watching, please subscribe, and see you on the next episode. Love you guys.